what I try to do in all situations is to show people how to be disciplined when they're communicating, but also to be colorful, to be charismatic, and how to break free of some of the old conventions of the way that you might give a speech or a presentation or even something like an interview like this.
Hello and welcome to the Mayman Show. We are coming to you from our studios in Riyadh, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And our guest today has been gracious enough to pass by our studios during a business trip. He's flown all the way from Washington, D.C. He is a renowned media trainer nowadays and had a previous life as a White House correspondent. Bill Connor, thanks for making the time to be here in our studios.
Hassam, hello. Thank you very much. I'm a big fan of the show. I've been watching you for the past couple of years. It's one of the best sources for keeping on top of what's going on in this incredible country these days.
Well, thanks for the plug-in. You know, I'm very bad with compliments, but couldn't have said it any better, I guess. So you've been coming into in and out of the kingdom for over a decade now, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and you do a lot of media training. I know what media training is. I do it myself, but can you give us a glimpse of just what it's like to be an internationally renowned media trainer and what type of...
Now you're over complimenting me. Let's get this out of the way.
Yeah, and the caliber of people you train.
Well, let me just tell you a little bit about my background initially. So I used to be a television reporter. Mm-hmm. I got out of college. I worked at the NBC TV station in New York City as a promotional writer. And while I was there, I worked closely with a tough old school New York City TV reporter named Gabe Pressman.
Yeah.
And through working with Gabe, I decided I wanted to be a journalist also. And so that's kind of how I gravitated toward journalism. And also because I've always been interested in everything and I like asking questions.
Yeah. Very inquisitive.
I think so. I mean, a lot of people are, but I love learning about a broad range of different kinds of things. So obviously as a journalist, you get an opportunity to do that. So got my master's degree in journalism, became a TV reporter. My first job was in a little TV station in Iowa, in Sioux City, Iowa. Yeah. I was there for a while. I was then an anchorman and a reporter in Portland, Maine.
Ah, nice.
And then for the last few years of my career, I was a White House correspondent. I was the White House correspondent for a group of ABC TV stations around the country. So I was one of those guys, one of those people out on the White House lawn every night doing live reports for various stations around the country. And so from that, I moved into media training. I figured out that I enjoyed showing other people how to communicate even more than I enjoyed just doing it myself.
Right.
So media training means that I work with CEOs here in Saudi, some ministers, different kinds of leaders to show them how to handle themselves and to tell their stories more effectively when they're doing an interview like this. Okay. And also speeches and presentations and panel appearances. So I work with them on preparing the content, the words and maybe the images they might use if it's a presentation, but also the elements of performance and delivery. Okay. What should I do with my hands? How should I think about my body language?
Yes.
How should my voice be? How should my vocal pacing be? All of those kinds of
all things. The things that I shred and throw away when I do this interview.
Well, that's why you're so good at this, because you're so authentic. I mean, you're not trying to be some kind of broadcaster or something like that.
Yeah, you should see my old reports when I was a broadcaster. See the difference. Yeah. Okay. And so you've done this around the world. You've trained a lot of prominent figures from around the world. Can you give us like a little snapshot of just where you have passed your knowledge and any name dropping of from some high level?
That I can't do, unfortunately, but I can't tell you where I've been. So yes, I can tell you that beginning in Washington one of my biggest clients was the World Bank, and I had a number of other corporate clients and government clients and so forth. But anyway, working with the World Bank, I went around the world to a number of different locations to work with their top people in various countries.
Okay.
How I came to Saudi is as follows. In 2012, I was at a conference in Washington, D.C., and this very nice gentleman named Ahmed Al-Sultan Al-Amri. Ahmed passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago. But anyway, Ahmed walked up to me, and he introduced himself, and he said, would you be interested in coming to Jeddah to work with my CEO and the executive team at my corporation? And I said, that sounds fascinating. I would love to do that. And fast forward these 13 years now, I've been coming to Saudi every 6 weeks or so, probably been here, I don't know how many times, 70 times, something like that. And, you know, I always say that my favorite thing is to be sitting at the dinner table with my wife, Cynthia, my daughter, Annabelle, and our dog, Ruffles. My second favorite thing is coming to Saudi Arabia. Because of the work opportunities, because of the extraordinary professionals that I get to work with, and just the welcome, the friendships that I've made here.
So what makes doing media training in Saudi different than other parts of the world for you?
You know something? I'm pleased to report that my style, which I suppose is a very American kind of style, has been really embraced here. I mean, they keep asking me back, so I think I think the clients are reasonably happy. I mean, what I try to do in all situations is to show people how to be disciplined when they're communicating, but also to be colorful, to be charismatic, and how to break free of some of the old conventions of the way that you might give a speech or a presentation or even something like an interview like this.
Show them this one and say, this is what not to do.
This? No, not at all. I have one Saudi CEO client who said to me, Bill, I don't want to be one of those stiff official kind of people, you know, boring the audience to death and just being incredibly serious and sort of to a kind of an unnecessary extent. And
like
so
a robot kind of, you know, like you don't really feel like you're talking to a human or having a human pass those messages to you. So it doesn't resonate that well.
So many people in leadership think that because they're talking about something that's really important, you know, whether that's Vision 2030 or their own particular business or whatever it happens to be, they think that they have to be very serious. Their whole demeanor has to be kind of, this is business, or this is moving this country forward. And we are, right, exactly. And I tell them that to me, I think it should be just the opposite. I think you have much more credibility. You certainly have a lot more charisma if you permit yourself to relax and to feel passionate and to feel happy about what is usually some pretty positive messaging that you're delivering. I mean, you think about what's going on in this country right now, the extraordinary growth and development and innovation and this incredible collective feeling of moving forward with purpose. I mean, it's good news.
Okay, I mean, so you just previously mentioned that you know, during your days as a correspondent, you found out that you loved teaching people how to deliver their messages rather than you delivering the message to the audience. What did you enjoy about that element, and which led to you starting your 3 Media Consultancy?
Well, don't get me wrong, I loved being a journalist. There's nothing like getting the information first and the excitement of doing that, and then being the messenger to lots of thousands of people, whatever.
There's a certain adrenaline rush that you get from doing it.
Absolutely. But to be honest, the adrenaline rush began to interest me less and less after a certain period of time. There were other things like my wife and I were trying to start a family. Your time is not your own when you're a journalist. And so I wanted to do something kind of entrepreneurial and kind of set my own course. And so that's how I moved into media training. And there's nothing more satisfying than working with a really smart person who is maybe not very self-confident about, and so I'm talking about, a CEO or a minister or somebody like that, who in public you would think is a master of the universe and has nothing but self-confidence.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, a lot of these same kinds of men and women feel nervous about speaking in public or about doing an interview like this. So it's very satisfying to show them how to build their self-confidence and how to get to the point where they, oh my goodness, they actually enjoy. Most people hate public speaking,
Yeah.
but if you can get yourself to the point where you actually enjoy it, that's the secret.
All right. And so in the world of media training, the curriculum and approach is kind of the same with slight little twists and variations. What makes your approach different?
Well, the easy answer to that is you should ask my clients that, but okay. I guess it's because I try very hard with every client to become very knowledgeable about what they do, about their particular industry or their particular area of focus first, just doing my homework. But I'm good at asking questions. I'm good at coming up with probing kinds of questions that help sort of bring people out and develop their messaging. So I guess it's that, there are a lot of terrific media trainers here and around the world. I work very closely here in Saudi with a gentleman named Dr. Majid Al-Ghamdi. It's a leading Saudi media trainer. Sometimes we'll do projects together and he'll do it in Arabic and I will do it in English. My Arabic is very limited. I know important words like kebsa and...
That's all you need to know.
And how do you say football again? Is it? It's Kurat al Qadam.
Yeah, Kurat al Qadam. Yeah.
Okay, that's it though.
Okay. I mean, well, you got the most popular sport down, most popular dish. You're good to go. I don't think you really need to do anything. I'm just saying.
I'm on my way.
Good. All
right. Okay. Anyway, so yes, so it's I guess what I like to think differentiates me is my very, very personal approach. It's not a cookie cutter kind of thing with every client. It's different. I try to tailor it very carefully to exactly what they're all about.
All right. I mean, fair enough. I mean, that's when I've trained a couple of executives, so I'm like roughly around 30. I kind of thought.
So you're my competition. I didn't realize.
Well, not really. I don't really media train anymore, but I will if someone asks me to. But I always like to give like a little personal spin on it based on my experience and being a news anchor and a presenter and covering live on the spot and just one of the things I think this as well is it's not how you fumble when you speak, it's how you pick yourself up right afterwards.
Absolutely.
You're all human, you're not gonna get it perfect all the time.
That's a really interesting observation, right? And that's what I try to share with my clients. If you're giving a presentation and you're nervous, or if in the middle of the presentation, as you're saying, you forget where you are or you stumble or whatever, in most cases, the audience wants you to succeed. The audience is not sitting there.
They're not against you.
Right.
Yeah.
So people ask me, what are some of the best ways to relax and to be more self-confident in public speaking? Number one is simply to practice, to be really well prepared. But it's just a mindset too. It's just about accepting that people want to get a good experience from what you're telling them. So they want you to do well.
Yeah. Plus, you're human, more relatable that way. Anyways,
that's right.
Okay.
Agreed.
So you've worked in over 20 countries,
yep.
Which spans like the Middle East, Europe, US, and other parts of the world. What do you find different about the people you have coached, in these parts of the world? What makes the mindset, or I guess sought after delivery of leaders from around those parts of the world different?
Well, the news media is different all over the world, obviously. Levels of professionalism and just the way that the news media operate in different parts of the world is different. So spokespeople in those same places have to respond accordingly.
Yeah.
So there are certainly some very distinct, obviously, cultural differences from one place to the next. But once again, I've been very happy here in this part of the world that my particular kind of approach has been accepted. It's very different in, let's say, Japan and China.
Okay.
The way that Saudi professionals communicate is a lot closer, now at least, to the way we communicate in the United States. I trained some people from Finland, for example, and I've told them, well, I want you to be more open and be more of a storyteller. And they said, well, we don't really do that in Finland, you know.
Okay.
So it's my sort of approach is not universally the right way to do it. But yes, there are most definitely, of course, cultural differences.
All right, fair enough. And have you been in any situations where you'd have to be adaptive? I mean, I remember when in some projects I worked in, I'd have to train, like, let's say, 5 executives, and I would find a hard time getting, face-to-face time with them. So and they'd have some interviews set up. So I'd have to give them like a crash course version of what to do and what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with them on a 24-hour basis, actually, because it was that was the kind of the project that we were working in.
Right.
Yeah.
So because it was, you had so little time with them, you had to,
because obviously, like, when you're training, you need a good at least 4 hours, right? So like to let someone know what, the do's and don'ts and all that.
Yeah. I mean, in a 4-hour half-day media training session, you can teach people the fundamentals.
Correct.
As you know, it's things like when you do an interview, you're there usually to talk about something that you'd like to talk about. And if the reporter wants to talk about something different, or if the reporter has nasty or hostile questions, how do you handle that kind of thing?
Okay.
And so it's not about, as you said before, just being sort of a robot and just staying on message no matter what. It's about figuring out how to tell your story credibly while still dealing with some questions that you might not want to deal with,
or just not the reason why you're there in the first place.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I'd have to squeeze in that 4-hour curriculum into, like, let's say 1 hour.
Right.
But I wanted at least the person I'm coaching to come out with something that of substance, basically.
And a lot of it is a lot simpler than some people might imagine.
Yeah.
Just one thing, for example, that I tell my clients is say your name. In other words, if you're doing an interview like this and you want to talk about your organization or your product or some sort of initiative that you're working on, say the name of the thing, right? I mean, in a television interview, probably on the screen, there'll be a graphic that says Hussam al-Mayman, the Mayman Show.
Exactly.
But you can't assume that the viewer has their eyes glued to the screen and sees, okay, Hussam.
Exactly.
Like that. So simply saying you're inserting your brand into your messaging is really important. Yeah. If you're driving down King Fahd Road and you're listening to some really interesting person on the radio and telling you about something that you'd like to know more about, if that person doesn't say his or her name, that's a missed opportunity for that person. It's an element of branding.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I always say if whatever you do, just make sure you cover the who, what, why, where, when, and how, and whatever message you.
Yeah, and the who is really important.
Yeah, and then it's a big win, of course. I mean,
so here's how you do it. For example, right? So if you ask me a question about media training, right, and if I wanted to promote my brand, I wouldn't just say, well, media training is important for the following 3 reasons. I would say, well, at my company, which is called 3 Media. We believe that media training is right. And so the trick is to do it in not such a advertising kind of way. The trick is to insert your brand in there, but just in a way that people remember what your name is.
Okay, I'm gonna see if we can get it with the next question. So in your experience working with professionals from around the world, what are the common mistakes executives and leaders do?
Number
being
one
in
is
front of the
simply
camera?
not being prepared. It's just
Yeah.
going into the interview kind of like, well, I'm the CEO of this big company. I can handle anything.
Hmm.
And then the third question is something totally unexpected, and you say the wrong thing, and
Okay.
the stock price goes goes down 5%,
Yeah.
something like that. So it's that.
Hmm.
It's, as I said before, it's about not branding yourself.
That's why at 3 Media we make sure that.
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also about knowing how to handle it if
Hmm.
you do get an unexpected or a difficult kind of question. Once again, it's about figuring out a way to not completely ignore the question, but not to be drawn in to that line of questioning in
Hmm.
such a way that the whole interview turns into that direction,
Yeah.
and you don't give yourself the opportunity to deliver your branding, your key messages,
Yeah.
and so forth. So I'd say the biggest mistake is not knowing how to do it beforehand. I've worked with quite a number of people before they got media trained,
Okay.
and they said, "Oh my goodness, I walked into this situation. I had no idea what was going to happen.
Hmm.
It was a disaster."
Okay.
So it's about preparation.
All right. Yeah.
There's an old joke, Hassan. You're familiar with New York City.
Yeah. Of course.
And of course, the center of New York City is Manhattan.
Hmm.
There are 5 boroughs in New York City. Manhattan is the one that most people know. And in the center of Manhattan, there's a very famous performing arts center called Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
Very famous in the United States. So
Mhm.
the joke is, so one guy is walking along 57th Street across town, and another guy walks up to him and he says, "Excuse me, do you know how to get to Carnegie Hall?" And the guy says, "Sure, practice."
All right.
Terrible old cliche
Yeah.
joke, but that's what it's all about.
All right. Okay. Okay. And so you've been coming in and out of the kingdom for over 10 years, which is basically a span where you've witnessed the kingdom pre, Vision 2030.
Yeah.
And now during. What was what expectations did you have when you first came here, and did they shift when you saw the launch of Vision 2030 and all these projects stemming from the vision, from in various sectors, from entertainment to tourism to culture to heritage to you name it?
Well, I'm
to what you see
probably
is today.
I'm probably the millionth person from the United States or Europe or what have you to come here and to be immediately surprised by what my preconceptions were and what the reality was.
Okay.
Just, as I said before, the warmth of the welcome, the friendships, the delicious food, the beautiful landscapes, all of those kinds of things.
The Capsa.
But obviously,
they had you at Capsa, right?
Yeah, at Capsa.
Okay.
And but it's certainly since 2012. I mean, just the development, the physical. Riyadh, for example, coming in from the airport 12, 13 years ago, it looks very, very different now. The trees, the greenery.
Yeah.
It's just literally a much more colorful place. It's a much more sort of open kind of place now. And as I said, just this sort of collective spirit of moving the country forward is really invigorating.
Okay. And with all this accomplishments and advancements and world-class events and everything, how do you believe basically being media trained plays a factor, especially when you're dealing with the international media world,
Yeah.
who have a selective narrative,
Yeah.
when showcasing or when talking about any news item that comes out of the kingdom?
I think some inroads are being made in that regard, slowly but surely. Yes, it's disappointing still in 2025 that a lot of these old misconceptions about this country still persist. I feel very fortunate that I get to come here all the time and I get to see it with my own eyes. But I believe that a lot of efforts on behalf of the media here, like the Ministry of Media has programs that they're doing a lot toward helping helping the rest of the world better understand what this place is all about.
All right. And, as a seasoned veteran in the industry, how do you see the evolution of media from what it was to where it is now, and where you see it going? Where do you see it going exactly?
If I were a younger person thinking about a career in media these days, you have to do a lot more than I did when I first started. And I was a broadcast journalist, and so when I started, I needed to know how to shoot video and edit video, and how to write a script, and how to appear on camera, all of those kinds of things. Today, somebody who's thinking about doing the same sort of thing also has to be a social expert. They have to know AI extremely well.
Right.
They have to not rely on AI. The traditional talents of being a strong writer and researcher and being inquisitive and all of that are still as important. I'm sure you've seen a lot of content generated by AI. You can tell immediately.
I always say with AI content, where content is king, context is Saudi, because I don't think AI would gather enough information to basically release something about the kingdom that's accurate.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a perfect example, actually, because if AI is cultivating all of this information that's been put out.
I understand. I'm trying to be smart here today.
Right. No, but I mean, for an individual person who's becoming a journalist, you don't rely on AI. You still have to learn how to do all of these other things that journalists have always done.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And okay, so let's touch into your tenure as a White House correspondent. How do you basically, as someone who's covered the White House on a regular basis and the White House hearings and everything, what are your thoughts about the current nature of the White House hearings nowadays? It seems to me that it garners a lot of media attention just with every day there's some new piece of information coming out of the White House, whether it's from President Donald Trump or his the media spokesperson for the White House.
It's a fire hose. You have to know how to handle it and separate the real from the
shunning of the Associated Press, for example.
Okay, I want to be a little bit careful here. I work with people from all sides of the political spectrum. But
mind you, it's just to be fair, it's a two-way street as well. I mean, it could be also the way how journalists are receptive of just the type of information. I mean, if you're going to have a proper dialogue, it needs to, a safe zone needs to be established from both parties. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, every presidency is different.
Yeah.
The way the media strategy of every president is different. I will say that President Trump's strategy is totally different from every other president that came before him, and that obviously presents a lot of challenges for journalists. But by and large, journalists work really hard. They're trying to do the right thing, and that's another thing that I like to emphasize with my clients is that if you have the opportunity to do an interview like this, the journalist probably isn't out to get you. The journalist is probably not trying to.
Oh, I'm a nice guy. I'm here just to tell a story.
Certainly not you, exactly. No, but I mean, a lot of people in the business world, for example, are very wary of journalists, and I try to tell them, you just if you're disciplined and if you're interesting and if you've got a good story to tell, probably the jury. I mean, there are some journalists who don't do it the way that they should, perhaps, but by and large, most journalists are professionals who are trying to tell the story.
You wouldn't have wanted to meet me when I was an investigative journalist. That was pretty hard to get along with. So, while
no, but that's important too. Yeah, obviously. Yeah,
I mean, I'm proud of the accomplishments from the reporting that I've done. I felt that it
Me too. I did a lot of investigative journalism
It
also.
pointed out the elephant in the room on lots of topics and subjects, and
Yeah.
I felt that it needed to be.
That's the job.
told.
That's the job of the journalist,
Yeah,
right? That's different from just being provocative for the sake of clicks.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
that's the difference that I'm
couldn't agree more.
referring to.
So during your time, popping in and popping out of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, you told me you've the show kind of caught your attention.
Yeah.
What makes this platform? I don't know, how did it catch your attention? Where do you feel?
Well, I just love
different?
the diversity of the guests that you have on.
Yeah,
you have Saudi men and women. You have people coming in from elsewhere. You have pilots. You have fighters. You have football players.
Right.
I just love the diversity of the thing.
And what makes it different other than the array of guests?
You're putting me on the spot here,
hey,
Hassan, but I think
a soundbite that's going to come from you is going to drive a lot of credibility to the roof. So we got to get it out.
I think you're a very good interviewer, Hassan. No, seriously, you ask excellent questions. You're very charismatic. You have a lot of fun. You relax. I feel totally relaxed talking to you now. I don't feel like I'm on the spot right now, and so that's a real talent. Okay, and you have that same sort of broad range of interests that I was talking about that got me interested in journalism in the first place, right? I mean, wouldn't you say that about yourself? You like.
Yeah, I mean, I made it a point that when I got into journalism and everything, I remember in 2007, actually, I got my first writing job here in Arab News, and the then chief editor, Khalid Marino, was telling me, which beat do you want to cover? I said, everything.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to just stick to one thing.
Right.
And, I started out actually as a news anchor who didn't want to be a parrot. So I learned how to edit items and direct and do all that stuff.
Yeah. Did that get you in trouble with some of the writers if they say, why did you totally rewrite my script that I spent
Well, in the beginning, there was a lot of clash between me and the editors until the news bulletins came out. And then the head of the newsroom would say, when it's his shift, he's the chief editor. And that was something I was very proud of because I was actually 19 when I did that. So,
wow.
So it's a long time ago. All right. And before we wrap up our interviews for the show, I always ask my guests if they have a special message to the audience.
Okay. So
Bill Connors.
Thank you, first of all, Hassan. As I said before, 3 is really important to me. When you deliver information, if you put that information as a group of 3 messages, for example, so like faith, hope, and charity, or red, white, and blue, or in France they have liberté, égalité, fraternité. There's just something about grouping information in 3s that resonates with audiences. So I tell people, if you're delivering a presentation, for example, share 3 big messages with the audience. The 3 messages I would share with your audience about this show are: number 1, follow the Mayman Show on all the various social platforms. I would also say follow me on LinkedIn if you're in the business community. And I would just finally say that don't be afraid of public speaking. Public speaking, whether that means doing an interview, speaking at a conference, speaking up at a meeting within your own organization. It really will benefit you and your organization, and it's very much a learnable skill if you are one of these people, like most people who don't really like public speaking very much. The good news is you can learn how to do it in a way that ultimately you might actually come to enjoy it. And I just want to mention one last thing. In addition to the corporate people and the government people, leaders that I work with here in Saudi and around the world, I'm also working now with kids.
Okay.
I'm partnering with Spacetoon. Are you familiar with Spacetoon?
Yeah.
Spacetoon is the kids network.
Cartoon network.
Spacetoon has a division called Spacetoon Education.
Okay.
And together, I and Spacetoon Education have created a program called Smart Speakers. And we're going to be launching it. I don't know when the show was going to air, but we're launching it in May of 2025.
All right,
so
around the same time.
Around the same time as you and I are talking right now. And it's a program for teachers, for high school and grade school kids, and even for younger kids that show them how to communicate more confidently in school and eventually in their careers. So it's going to be spacetuneedu.com. As a matter of fact, the website is up right now. You can look at it. We think it will be a really beneficial thing for teachers and for students as well.
All right. Well, I mean, that's a very interesting initiative, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, and can you imagine? It's really satisfying to work with an adult to see her or him improve at public speaking. It's even more satisfying to see a younger person do that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And before we wrap up our interview, I'd like to thank you again for popping by our studios. And just before we wrap up the interview, there is one little trick I always tell anyone who's doing some media training.
Yeah.
And to quote Michael Jackson, just look at the man in the mirror.
That's
See you
right.
later.
That's right. Thank you very much, Usama. It was great. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
See you later.